The data this morning is interesting, and around it is perhaps a celebration of a healthy president. We'll see how that news unfolds here across the morning. Right now, what's different from my last conversation with Marty Schenker, our chief content officer, is Marty, the president is using his best vehicle of communication. I think there's been 300 tweets this morning. What does it signal?
300, Tom, but there have been a number of them. Yep.
What's it signal? Signals
that he wants to display some normalcy, if you can call it that. What's normal in Trump's world is an interesting thought. But he is tweeting, and it was, when he was first diagnosed, he ceased tweeting for something like 36 hours. So that caused a lot of concern, I think.
Marty, it is a wide range of topics that the president addresses. In terms of, as John Farrell mentioned, his 39% polling, which is a stunning statistic, a la Bob Dole from another time in place. What is the single issue to jumpstart the president's campaign?
Well, I really don't know. I think he's searching for that issue because nothing so far has worked for him. And I think what the polling, as John mentioned, the polling over the weekend, which was pre-diagnosis but post-debate, his performance at that debate clearly hurt him among voters in America.
Marty, just looking through the tweets, and there's always a risk that you overanalyze some of the tweets from the President of the United States, but there are about 15 of them, and they're on different topics, different themes. The strongest ever military, vote. Law and order, vote. Religious liberty, vote. So far, nothing on COVID-19. And isn't this the issue for this campaign now, Marty, that it's going to be very difficult to campaign on the other issues?
For sure. You know, the public has a strange way of deciding what is the issue as opposed to the candidates themselves. And this virus overtakes everything. And his record on the virus is not great, as many of us understand. And now that he has the virus, and he is trying desperately to talk about anything else, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Marty, how do you think President Trump's joyride, I should say, outside of Walter Reed Hospital over the weekend to visit his supporters from a closed car, how do you think that'll play with his supporters?
Well, I think, the supporters out in the street were probably thrilled to see him. But he's under tremendous criticism from the medical community and others for putting the Secret Service men in that vehicle at risk because he's clearly infectious. And even if you're wearing masks, that is a hermetically sealed car. And he could have endangered those Secret Service agents.
Marty, questions still remain about the protocol and whether it was followed, and when they found out about the positive test of Hope Hicks. And let's be clear, it was our very own Jennifer Jacobs that broke that news. And if she hadn't, Marty, who knows how this story would have rolled out into the weekend. Marty, what don't we know, and what do we need to know about what happened last week?
Well, one of the most important things, and we're not getting any clarity at all, is when Donald Trump last week was tested and what those test results showed. For instance, before he went on Thursday to his fundraiser in Bedminster, he knew Hope Hicks had tested positive. But did he himself test positive at that point? The White House is not giving any clarity whatsoever on when Donald Trump was tested during last week. And it raises the question, how regularly is he tested generally? Because if he was tested positive and went to these events knowing that, it's a serious breach.
Marty, you and I are of a certain vintage where we have been hermetically sealed since February. And, full disclosure, folks, we're very fortunate to work for Bloomberg, which has really done a great job in this within our headquarters here at 731 at Queen Victoria Street and the rest. Marty, we understand that age issue. If there are X number of 70-year-olds ill off of this shenanigans, that's bad odds for one of them, isn't it?
It is. As we know, people people over 70 are at a higher risk. And it's also interesting to note that many of these COVID patients show improving signs and then days later essentially collapse. And that is why this whole notion of Donald Trump being released from the hospital today seems like a fantasy to me, that doctors would allow that to happen.